sends up a flare as it activates. The reason that Laura hadn't activated the towers earlier was that
this game is just so much fun.
reduce the map of an area, they require
I
someone
was debating
to
between this and Honeypot,
scan the surroundings,
and I've decided this game.
This isn't something just anyone can accomplish. Only Link, an adept at paragliding from his previous adventure, can do it. So Pura gives Link a new paraglider, and then, in a cutscene that evokes more than a little bit of a Wind Waker feeling, launches him to the sky, where he scans the surroundings and sends the data back along a wire. Processed data returns along the same cord. The surroundings map is loaded onto the tablet. Now that he's in possession of a map of the surrounding area, Pura points out 4 regional phenomena, areas that have been particularly affected by the upheaval. In the distant past, Zelda had sown the seeds of Link's journey by planning the ancient sages for their successors to awaken alongside Ganon. But when the Demon King had returned, he specifically targeted these regions, knowing that each contained a secret stone that could be used against him, and created monsters that would disrupt these areas and their people. Freeing these regions and awakening a new order of sages to fight the revived Demon King is the main focus of Link's quest. Pura's assistant, Joshua, is the head of Depth's research, responsible for studying the...
It turns out JJ is useless.
...underworld found at the bottom of the
The 40% off resources is talking about the resources, small and large, that you can buy from the merchants.
Ancient times, but always lurked beneath it. Together with Robbie, Link investigates the central Hyrule Chasm.
I suppose I can just stack all of my healing abilities, lol.
Raru's shrines of light above them to illuminate
That's
the
85%
research into the depths
healing increase, although I can't cast that right now.
Joshua and her team have already made
if they actually do stack.
progress. They've
I'll
begun
have
to
to wait
piece
until I
together a
actually get a
stone
green herb and
mural
stuff.
showing an ancient people lived in the depths, the Zona. The depths contain statues of Goron, Zora,
Good things on sale,
and
stranger.
the 4 non-Hylian tribes, but also these, with strange, somewhat
Rubies or
frog-like
rubbish,
heads,
it makes no
one
difference
fist in
to
the
the
air.
price.
These statues represent a 5th race during the distant past, one who lived and mined in the depths.
A deal well
It's implied that these people were the Zona,
Will
but the
that be all,
statues
then?
look nothing like Raru and Mineru, the 2 remaining
Your
Zona
weapons
during
are
the
in
time
good
Raru was
hands,
founded.
mate.
The
I'll see
statues could depict whatever race the ancient hero was. The face shape is similar, but the statues lack a tail. Perhaps they were a different type or class of Zona, or an entirely different
Why is the striker so
once
fast?
lived in
It's
this
actually faster than my
subterranean world.
handgun.
Eventually, with Link's help, Josh's research progresses. She completes this ancient mural, depicting Raru using a magical ability in an underground temple, what is now the central abandoned mine, one of the facilities the Zonai had used to process Zonite into energy. Curiously, all of the Zonai mines in the depths are situated directly beneath
There
the
you are.
locations of towns on the surface, and the central
dang
mine
it.
is
That whatever,
where
I'll sell it.
What can
although
I
the
do?
Great Plateau is now in
Thank
ruins, it was once the center of Raru's kingdom of Hyrule. It was where his
I
Temple
want
of
this.
Time and
See how
Hyrule
that
Castle were
feels,
found. As the
Fella
old
like
man
yourself
states
should
in
notice
Breath of
the
the
difference
Wild,
right
it was the
away.
birthplace of the kingdom. But now that the Zonai are gone, their minds are empty, abandoned by all but constructs, the spirits of the dead. But the central abandoned mine isn't abandoned anymore. During Breath of the Wild, Link was tasked with retrieving the Thunder Helm, a priceless artifact stolen from the Gerudo. It was stolen by the Yiga clan, a militant group of Sheikah whose ancestry traces back to the split in the tribe, when an old king had outlawed their advanced technology. Relatively recently, these shunned Sheikah began to worship Ganon, lurking in an old Gerudo shrine north of the desert. They were led by Master Koga,
I'll be back soon
bumbling
enough.
yet
I'll get it
lovable
right now,
idiot
actually.
who,
Whatever.
during his showdown with Link, ends up defeating himself and falling down a seemingly bottomless pit. But this wasn't the end of Koga. This hole, it turns out, led to the depths. The Yiga Master survived and had discovered an entire new world. Over the next few years, the Yiga clan had expanded into the depths. They built strongholds and storerooms, and even began to experiment with ancient Zonai technology, building defense systems and vehicles with incredible names, like the Gloom Dredger or Hoverdoom Mark III. Master Koga commanded an
Remember, it
almost
should be visible
godlike
from around
presence
here.
among the Yiga clan, but he himself worshipped a greater evil, Ganondorf. The Yiga clan had sworn allegiance to the Calamity Ganon over a century earlier, and now that the true threat had awoken, the fallen Sheikah once again gathered to support him, calling him the Magnificent One. Koga and the Yiga live for vengeance, sworn to bring ruin upon Princess Zelda and her kingdom, and, of course, to kill their greatest enemy, Link. One focus of the Yiga clan's expeditions into the
Is there a way to
depths
reverse
was
the
searching
scroll
for
wheel?
a
I kinda want it to be
forgotten
reversed.
power. The clan poured through musty old texts.
I don't know why, it
and
just makes
hunted
sense for it to be that way.
Zonai ruins, all in search of the auto-build power, the ability to instantly replicate Zonai vehicles, rather than painstakingly building them by hand. So, when Link just strolls into the central abandoned mine and takes the power for himself, Koga is understandably quite annoyed. Because Link now possesses King Raru's right arm, he's able to open Zonai seals, something which is completely impossible for the Yiga, barring them from activating the constructs and unlocking the Zonai secrets. Link encounters the Yiga Master
There you go,
multiple
that
times
just makes so
throughout
much
the
more
depths,
sense for me.
at the abandoned mines underneath the towns. At each of them, Koga vows to destroy Link, using increasingly ridiculous vehicles. But no matter what monstrosity he brings to bear against the hero, it inevitably has the same result, leaving Koga battered and bruised, his inventions in broken pieces. Koga eventually gives up on trying to steal the auto-build power back from Link, and instead commits himself to Plan B. He claims that the Yiga have been gathering as much Zonai energy as they can, in the form of the crystallized charges that Link can use to expand his own Zonai energy cells, in order to build a final weapon, an ultimate machine to offer to the Demon King, with which he will bring the world to its end. This weapon is a giant construct, exactly like the one built by Minoru in the distant past as a vessel for her spirit. This had been her greatest achievement, a machine so large that Zelda once rode on its shoulders. Koga's construct is, of course, decorated with Yiga symbols, and uses powers like force shields and spiked projectiles against Link. But this isn't enough. Koga has only one option left, a brand new technology developed in the deepest darkness of the darkest depths, the Koga rocket. But just like he had done during his first showdown with Link during Breath of the Wild, Koga's ultimate technique ends up defeating himself. The Koga rocket instead hits its master, sending him curling through the depths like a human firework, launching him up through a chasm where he vanishes, all the while screaming that he will have his revenge. Link's quest through the depths gives an insight into the mysteries of the ancient Zonai and their mining operations. But his main journey takes place in the world above, where he rallies Hyrule together against the evil that threatens it. Link soon discovers that there is a sinister truth behind the mystery of Zelda's whereabouts. He and the search party weren't the only ones to see a figure resembling the princess since her disappearance. All across Hyrule, there are reports of encounters with a woman who looks like Zelda, yet has cold, dead eyes like a dog. Ganondorf had fallen into the deepest reaches of the depths after he awoke, but just like he had done in the distant past, he began to use his magic to manipulate the kingdom through a phantom saboteur. This puppet Zelda interfered with Hyrule's reparations, causing distress and confusion at stables, even forbidding anyone, the Zonai survey team, from inspecting the floating ring ruin of Kakariko village. Though some noted the uncanny nature of this phantom, it was enough to fool the entire kingdom and disrupt it from within. At this point, even Link is unaware of the figure's true identity and purpose, and this phantom was involved in the orchestration of existential threats.
Oh shit, the scroll wheel is inverted for menu navigation too. Oh crap.
During the upheaval, the Hebra region, home to the airborne Rito tribe, became shrouded in an endless blizzard. The blistering cold means that travel to their village is almost impossible, creating a food shortage. The Rito believe, quite sensibly, that the source of this blizzard must be
Fine,
the
I guess I'll
gigantic
keep it
storm cloud
normal.
directly above Hebra Peak, but it's too turbulent for even the Rito to
Because
fly
there's no way
close.
that'll make any
To
sense.
gaze up at the storm from below.
Maybe I should just reverse my weapon
One of
loadout.
their oldest myths, the Stormwind Ark. The Ark has been part of Rito legend
You know,
since
deal
before
with the long
the
scroll.
time of King Rara. According to the story, ancient Rito were once visited by
Really?
a god who fell from the heavens, unable to return. This god was one of the Zonai, who once lived in a civilization above the clouds before settling on the surface.
Heck,
The
that
Zonai
medallion, I
stood
don't
atop
remember.
a hill for days on end, longing to return to his home in the sky. But the Rito could not carry him there. They tried time after time, but none had wings strong enough to reach the islands in the heavens. The Zonai came up with a solution. The Rito gathered materials, and the Zonai used Ultra Hands to piece them together, creating a fleet of small flying ships. On this impossible armada, the Rito were able to climb to the heavens above the clouds to a world where floating islands
The rest should
dotted
be there.
the endless
I'll just
sky.
murder everyone there.
Zonai was home.
Just like what I did last time.
People far above the land to where the Rito reluctantly returned. The Zonai sent a gift down to those who had helped him.
And got hand grenades.
The Stormwind Ark, a gigantic flying ship with many great oars.
Jump scares.
That shared the air until strong
Shit.
winds
God
allowed it
damn
to
it.
glide on. Many years later, this ship was used as the Wind Temple, where the ancient Sage of Wind met Princess Zelda.
I'd like to spend some money upgrading the Punisher back to snuff.
Fight the Demon King in the future. And so, the Stormwind Ark was not only the source of the strong winds around the village, but the place in which the Rito Sage's steel stone was stored. The Ark eventually faded into legend, passed down the story, the song, and the traditions. Only Rito
Only two. Damn.
adults, meta, and dismissed
Un forastero. Apparently you can get HP bars to show up. Shit.
However, is an exception.
Man, stop being so thirsty for me, y'all.
Rito warrior who had helped Link reach the divine beast of Armado during his early lives. In that
How about the other eye?
but in the years since, has grown into an incredibly talented archer. His father is taken over the role of the village chief from Canelli, and is forced to devote most of his attention to the
Should be another hand grenade here, yep.
But Tulin is bold and confident. Despite
Ooh,
his father's warnings,
I love it.
he desperately wants to help his people, to find a solution to the freezing blizzard that plagues them. Like Rivali, the champion of Armado, Tulin is able to control the wind around him, creating his own gusts of air on which to glide. Together with Link, he begins to climb the rising
I think this
islands
is the
chain
exit.
up
Yep.
into the blistering Hebra skies, and discovers the truth of the legend of his people. As the pair
Okay,
climb,
everyone's
the
health
voice
here is
sounds out
low.
from the clouds
I
above.
assume professional works the same way as it did in the original work.
Who had promised Zelda
It just made it so it's always
that their
capped
descendant
at the
awakened
max
to fight
of the dynamic difficulty settings and never lower, regardless of what happened.
That his ancestor promised would rise to fight alongside Link. The pair leap across the sails of floating ships, dancing in the snowy sky until
What a
they reach the
fool.
eye of the storm.
What fuck? I am the fool.
Legendary Stormwind arc. Witness the hunt of Zelda walking across the ark's deck, which contains a giant gate made from 6 segments. The Zelda clone vanishes, and a torrential gust of wind erupts from beneath the gate. Whatever is causing the blizzard must be found below it. 5 of the 6 segments remain shut. Explore the sky ship using Tune's power abilities to activate fire blocks, which in return opens the gate. They return to the deck, and Link activates the gate mechanism, releasing the source of the blizzard cold. This frozen monstrosity is, in many ways, a successor to Mulgara, the boss of the Wind Temple in Midway. Like its name suggests, though, Mulgara is encased completely in ice. It can harness the wind and produce strong fires to cool itself off. It was created by Ganondorf upon its resurrection, with the specific goal of harassing the Rito tribe, preventing the wind, their sage, and the discovery of the secret stone. The beast is incredibly powerful, but so are Link and Tuna. Together, they are journeying Caldera in the clouds.
Oh shit. Whoa.
Restoring peace to the heathen. On the deck of the Stormwind Ark, which now floats in the calm skies, they discover the ancient Sage of Wind's secret stone, which thaws out of a pillar of ice. Like it had been when the sage first received it from Raru in the Forgotten Temple, the stone is white and smooth, a blank canvas, yet to
Hey, when did I get that snake?
abilities of the owner. The Sage of Wind's spirit speaks to Link and Tulin, explaining the story of the imprisoned dwarf and of his promise to Zelda. Tulin understands and accepts his destiny. He inherits his ancestor's secret stone, which reacts to his inner power and once again becomes a green stone of wind.
I don't think this will be useful.
Reveals that he
I'll
possesses
just
the
disarm it.
power
I suck at using traps.
create a spiritual avatar of himself. Just like Zelda had
Let's
done
browse
in
this
Temple of
thing.
Time, he holds Link's hand, transfers his power to Raru's arm, marked by a ring on Link's little finger, and swears to fight alongside him against the darkness. Zelda's chosen knight defended the Rito from Ganondorf's assault and awakened the first of a new generation of sages to confront him. But his journey was only just beginning. Like he had done years earlier when he had rescued Hyrule from the clutches of the calamity, he sets his sights on the 3 remaining regions.
Knock knock. Who's there?
On the 3 remaining regions. Death Mountain, the home of the Gorons, cools significantly. The lava that had streamed down its rocky slopes dries up, and the volcano's
Be fine eating one of them. I only needed
cloud of blue.
one
The
viper
Gorons
for the quest.
themselves suffered a
One
terrible
more.
fate. During Breath of the Wild, Link had travelled alongside Yonobo, the grandson of the champion Daruk, to divine beast Father Daniel, whose rampaging was causing violent eruptions, making mining the mountain difficult. Sometime after Link calmed the beast, the mountain fell dormant, opening up access to new caves and ore deposits on its rocky slopes. Yonobo founded Yonobo Co., a mining company, which became successful enough to effectively run Goron City. After the upheaval, however, Yunobo began receiving instructions from Ganondorf's puppet.
That should do it.
It gave him a new mask which seized control of his mind, completely changing his personality. Gorons usually dine on a diet of rocks directly from the mountain, like the classic rock roast, but Yunobo-ko began to mine for marbled rock roast, which glows red with glue. Gorons who consume marbled rock roast are literally stoned. They're lulled into a trance.
Stoned?
Their eyes glow an eerie red. So, by the time Link arrives on Death Mountain, most of the Gorons have been enslaved to this new food. They refuse to talk, work, or do anything other than sit and gorge themselves on the rock. Only the very young and very old.
Seriously, where are the green herbs?
They're unable to digest the rock, but are too
This is what I'm talking about.
to stop Yunobo's operation. Only Link is brave enough to confront him. He still recognizes the hero from their previous adventure, but the puppet of Zelda uses the mask to force him into a frenzy. Once the mask is broken, however, Yunobo returns to his former self. Everything that has happened since he put it on is remembered only as a blur. The Goron is shocked to see the red haze of gloom surrounding Death Mountain's
Snakes.
but the children
I want their heads.
they remember this happening during the upheaval. As soon as the castle
Or
rose into
rather,
the
you
air,
need them.
the red mist began to choke the mountaintop. Yunobo had apparently gone to investigate, but when he returned, was wearing this mysterious mask, warning everyone to stay clear of the peak. The Goron and the Hylian embark on another journey together to the summit of Death Mountain. Here, Puppet Zelda unleashes Moragia, a titanic beast of living rock, rising from the summit of the volcano. Moragia's name is similar to Volvagian, the dragon boss of the fire temple from Ocarina of Time, and sure enough, it takes the form of 3 dragon-like heads of stone. According to its Hyrule Compendium entry, its body is composed of boiling lava and hard rocks infused with glue, which it holds together by drawing both heat and gloom power from the crater. By riding a zonine plane that had fallen from the skies and conveniently landed on the mountain Link and
How do I get that?
Yunobo destroy the 3 heads of Moragia, opening up the mountain's crater to reveal a gigantic chasm, portal to the depths of the region. Like Tooth, Yunobo is the distant descendant of an ancient sage who calls out to the fire temple. Like the storm in March, the temple used regulation for the sage is a sign
Keep
of
forgetting I
a
can't just spam now.
its race and
Whoa.
the forgotten city.
Alright.
This towering structure,
Whoa.
built with zonai stonework, was once the home of the Gorons in the distant past. It was abandoned, lost in the pit. Legends tell of its advanced technology, strange vehicles, but none alive had seen it until Yunobo enter in pursuit of the puppet. Here they fight marbled Doma, the source of the marbled rock roast, the fiery member of the Doma family.
Oh, come on. Kill it. Kill it. Fuck. Leon, you had one job.
The pair destroy the monster, and Yunobo is awakened as the Sage of Fire. Sora's domain is plagued by the Sky Islands directly above it, the reappearance of the Water Temple, which was once the source of their pure water. However, Ganondorf's power has caused a toxic sludge to pour from these islands, sullying the domain's waters and injuring any Zora who comes into contact with it. At one point, the doppelganger of Zelda even attacked the Zora king, Dorifan, unleashing a sludge monster in an attempt on his life. Dorifan had previously defended his domain from a guardian, so he of course was able to defeat the foe, but not before taking considerable damage from the toxic substance. He retreats to his secret spring, so that word does not spread of the fact that he was attacked by Hyrule's princess and cause panic. Dorethan's son, Prince Sidon, is incredibly gifted.
That was a speedrun tactic I accidentally did.
This is apparently something that all Zora are able to do, to a certain extent, but Sidon's powers exceed all others. He's forced to almost single-handedly bear the brunt of the poisonous sludge raining down from the water temple, purifying it as quickly as he can to prevent any reaching the domain just below. At some point between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, Sidon had married Fiona, a Zora who is
I believe that's everything up there.
entirely different domain somewhere else in the world. This means that there are more Zora found outside of Hyrule. This world is bigger than just this single country. Sidon holds back the sludge atop Ploymus Mountain, where Link had fought a Lionel in Breath of the Wild. Since then, it has been repurposed. A shrine has been constructed to honor Sidon's older sister, known as Mipha Court. The statue of the princess has been moved from the domain to here, replaced with one immortalizing Sidon and Link's victory over Divine Beast Varuta. Prince Sidon is the descendant of the ancient Zora sage, and so he pieces together the mystery of the Sky Islands above his home with Link, eventually uncovering the ancient Zora waterworks and opening a waterfall
Run back and
that
save
allows
first
access
before
to
doing the Lago.
Wellspring Island and the water temple itself. Again, this temple is the original source of Zora's
I don't trust myself enough
waters, a small group of
to be able to beat it right away.
below 5 giant faucets.
If I die and I have to do all that running around again.
Since the temple from the skies, it has become the home of Octorok, a creation of Ganondorf and the creator of the toxic sludge, a creature related to the small Octoroks. Together, Link and Sidon destroy this creature, stopping the endless flow of poison. Sidon not only becomes the Sage of Water, but also Zora's domain's king. His father, concerned that he allowed himself to be hurt by a monster, believes it's time for him to pass the torch to his son. King Sidon is crowned alongside his wife, Queen Fiona. Air in the Gerudo Desert is choked by a sandstorm. The ground itself gives way to quicksand and sinkholes. Worse still, the dead stalk the dunes.
Good stuff.
Horrifying
Got a
creatures
selection of
summoned
good
to
things on sale,
stranger. Gerudo underground, where they shelter an ancient bunker below the throne room. The source of the sandstorm and the gibdos that hide in it is Queen Gibdo, a giant insect.
Your weapons are in good hands, mate. I'll see you right.
The chief of the Gerudo.
Yeah, wow, it's so much weaker.
Try that on for size.
Wild, Link uncovers the secret of the Lightning Temple from an ancient tablet beneath Gerudo Town, and the dungeon rises from the sands.
Anything else I can help
It's a
you with?
gigantic pyramid built by the Zonai and the Gerudo.
You'll get some bang for your buck, I guarantee it.
Oh, the starter gun is apparently supposed to still have high crit rate. Maybe I should have just gone for that.
Got a selection of good things on sale, stranger. If you want a fighting chance out there, you best tune up your kit.
You uncover the fourth secret stone. The Gerudo chief
Come
swears to
anytime.
offer support to Link as the new Sage of Lightning, vowing to use her powerful control of electricity against the demon. I mentioned
I
in
will
part
put the
1
Killer 7
ancient
back to the
sages
inventory.
all wear masks resembling the heads of the 4 Sheikah divine beasts.
I want to see if I can get more ammo for
To
it.
strengthen this connection, each temple features an animal motif that matches the divine beasts. The Stormwind Ark, of course, features
Yeah, the most important part.
the Fire Temple's boss chamber includes designs resembling Varudania's head. The Water Temple's faucets are shaped like elephants, and the Lightning Temple features camel designs, as well as the 6 eyes of Varnaboris. Much of the story of these ancient sages is still a mystery, but it seems that they were the inspiration for the divine beasts. After awakening the sages, Link returns to Lookout Landing, where Ura stands looking through the telescope in the castle. By rescuing the four regions from Ganondorf's creations, Link has started to rally the kingdom, to gather and mobilize its forces against the upheaval. Members from each race can now be found at Lookout Landing, diligently preparing for the battle ahead. Ura looks through the telescope in the castle and spots Princess Zelda standing.
Man, the game looks so fantastic.
Link must now reach this floating citadel.
Even with my shitty, even in these shitty settings on my shitty computer.
Just as it happened during Breath Wild, Hyrule Castle was
Let's skip this. What am I doing?
He previously learned from Zelda's diary.
I'm not here to re-experience the story, I'm here to
Village.
play a game.
This isn't the strength that we saw you wearing this champions members. Regardless, amongst two
Oh, then that was a blessing.
chance once again dominates on the farm. She claims this to be one of the fortress with one storms to emerge lies back from the land. Corners the document. She uses her magic to create an illusion to temporarily restore the castle's sanctum to its former glory, fitting for the last thing.
Think you can swallow me whole, huh?
See, above Zelda, a spectral image appears, unmistakable form of the the Demon King taunts, Zelda feels the pain on its own strings, and it dissolves into which gathers and deflects into the dark shape of Phantom Gathering. Inside her, Phantom Gatherings appeared numerous times before in the series. Ghosts created by Ganondorf. This Phantom Gathering is a character in its own flesh and blood. It's also very similar to the sage avatars that follow him, which are projections of Sage's spirit, possible by possession of a sacred stone. Phantom Gatherings are red to reflect the personality of darkness. Echoing its masculine character, it explains the Phantom castle's throne, destroying mirror images of being, dodging, parrying strikes from its weakness. Eventually, forms of Ganondorf not completely, Phantom Gathering explodes into a cluster of which then launches towards the four great tendrils, exactly like those which emerge above the castle, braces in hands. This time, it's not to run. The spectre of Ganondorf spies that this group, each bearing a secret stone that is not recognized, uses the things to acknowledge that the stones depart. He claims that the sage's ancestors had only delayed his ascension.
Where'd you go?
And as his secret stone of darkness grows, he shows no vision of the world as it was, rather than the world he created. This world of chaos is exactly what Ganondorf is to return to, allows the values of the
Tough son of a bitch.
power of the house, the fighting spirits, courage, vigor, and ascension inspired. He claims that the sages wait until its meanings to sweep the light and vanishes, fading away into part of the The sages this was the man ancient sages were warned about, who would really destroy the world on no Otherwise,
Oh my god.
Hyrule Castle
It's going on forever.
to all of the stopper of the sea, But this time, gathering strength, the search for value, and
No!
Does Genshin need new weapon types? While not really a priority discussion topic if you've been playing since version 1, this kind of question has surfaced at least once or twice in your online life. Many players have brought this up mostly in the name of fun theory crafting and not something that needs immediate attention, but at the same time discussion's always meant to bring to light conjecture and opinion, which is exactly the kind of stuff I like to make on this channel. I have gone over weapons in the past, namely criticizing the way it was structured and that it can be prohibitively restricting for players who justifiably don't want to spend the same amount of money it takes to get a character on a piece of equipment. Aside from that though, every so often there would be a post on the Genshin subreddit talking about how more weapon variety would do some good, especially now that the roster is getting bigger and bigger. I figured this would make for a fun, lighthearted discussion topic, so for today, let's talk about this video's title. It's been a while since we discussed weapons in detail, so let's quickly go over them. One moment though, for my PC gacha gamers out there, or even if you play Genshin on mobile, you might want to check this out for your computer games. I partnered up with Java for today's video. Java is a trusty online platform where you can buy and sell parts and commission custom builds at good prices. They have an individually curated group of verified sellers and tech experts that can advise you on building the right computer for you. One way they do this is through the Commission Builds program, where you can fill out a series of questions about what kind of PC you're looking for, the games you want to play, performance you want, and the site will pair you up with a verified seller to make the custom build suited towards your preferences. Additionally, they also have a marketplace where you can directly buy and sell parts to other users, or Java can buy a GPU directly. If you're trying to upgrade your current rig but want to sell the parts first to offset the cost, you can do so right here, as Java can take your GPU right off your hands rather than you having to go through the trouble of finding buyers, although you do have to for the other parts. They have a big Discord community with great customer support as well as game nights, contests, and giveaways. So if you're big on computer gaming, then take a visit to Java and see what they have using my link in the description. Thanks again to Java for sponsoring the video, but for now, let's get back to it. Currently we have 5 weapon types: swords, claymores, polearms, catalysts, and bows. The first 3 make up the melee category, with all their attacks dealing physical damage to enemies in their radius. Claymores trade attack speed for more range and damage per swing, along with the added property of being considered blunt attacks, so they break material shields, ores, and geo objects at a considerably faster rate. Polearms and swords are mostly the same, with the exception that polearms have slightly longer range. To my knowledge, they have the same attack speed, making the former infinitely better for all intents and purposes. The last 2 weapons make up the range category. Both also do physical damage with their normal attacks, but only target one enemy at a time.
Man, the Lago boss fight is still super boring.
If you switch to aim shot mode after charging for a brief moment, your next attack deals elemental damage corresponding to the user's vision. Catalysts, on the other hand, always deal elemental damage at mid-range, while their charged and plunging attacks deal AoE elemental damage. This does come at the cost of typically less attack speed and more stamina consumption for charged attacks. That's the gist of weapon types in this game. Not the most rudimentary system out there, but it still falls under a bare bones structure. Maybe the most sophisticated mode factor in their passes and whatnot, but overall that's the long and short of weapons. Now, to assess whether or not we need more weapon types, we first have to look at what purpose these weapons serve in Genshin. Like in any video game, weapons are characters' vehicle for making damage. Without a weapon, you can't attack. Typically, weapons come with a sort of a stat, and the problem is to distinguish one from another. In this case, we have the game attack stat and a secondary substat which can come from vulnerabilities and precision attack, crit damage element, mastery, defense, energy, recharge, what have you. Methods of passive attack should be usually entails more combat stats. Some may have unique perks, like the sacrificial series resetting your elemental skills cooldown, allowing you to cast it twice in succession. But that aside, weapons in Genshin involve almost exclusively stat sticks. They do little, if anything, to fundamentally alter the character's animations or functions. When it comes to RPGs, they usually go in one of 2 directions. One is the aforementioned approach, where the purpose of a weapon is to influence a character's stat line. The benefit of this is that more focus is placed on the character's own capabilities, something discovered on the Dutchess as the whole concept of is to provide things to different units. The other direction is for the point of emphasis to the other weapons themselves. Zelda Breath of the Wild is a quintessential example of this. You're the only person in the room, but how you adjust and format your playstyle based on your various weapons and tools. Boomerangs, one-handed melee weapons, rods, and so on. Each of them having very distinct applications that set them apart from the other weapons of the same class. No matter their benefits, it just comes down to what the developer prefers when they do the game. Anyways, back to Genshin. Obviously, the point of emphasis is on the character's vulnerabilities. So in this case, the weapons should not be the focus of attention as they would take away from the weapons themselves, especially since the essential experience of the game is predicated on elemental combinations. And more importantly, in the gacha game, characters are intended to stay within the boundaries of their design constraints. Hypothetically, if we imagine a anime or let's say fire 3 arrows instead of 1, how would that affect the game's balance and experience?
Venting exists, and he can do that with constellations.
Normal attacks and building up when you see substantially more powerful than specific goals since it effectively triples their higher application. Or what if there is a goal that might explosive weapons? That would make someone like that you exceedingly overpowered as she could find the burst melt on her own crossbow arrows. It is suddenly exciting, but once again it draws attention away from the idea/ending and puts it on those specific weapons. At that point, it's not whether or not X character is strong, it's about whether or not X character can use that weapon. That makes sense. Because weapons are for the most part entirely nominal, especially nowadays. Back then, one advantage to that over Kurtzing aside from the superior element at the time was that he was able to use it, so it was much easier to initiate the rituals more wide crystal war. However, in the present, I can't remember the last time a character's weapon actually mattered. Not saying it doesn't. Functionally, what weapons we use on the character greatly influences their efficiency, but I was referring to like animations and actual effects. The Catalyst weapon type was colloquially regarded as the worst weapon type in the game. While it dealt elemental damage, there is way too happy to it its exorbitantly high stamina cost and weapons. Yes, that stamina cost and the animations were endemic to the characters, not the weapon type. It was just having more to design normal and charge attacks for the archetype. Some Catalyst users had good animations like Genpei, or Ningguang Ming's talk about
Oh my god, why?
is quite nice. You can look at newer Catalyst users like Wander, while the can move and fly around while attacking, or Hazel straight up doesn't cast range attacks and goes full on Street Fighter. Freaking Dia drops her great sword altogether when using her burst and does a 10-hit combo on you like a character from Tekken. Even early on in Genshin, we had Child, who was a bow user, but had an elemental skill that let him use daggers and a spear. Seeing as our weapons primarily serve to be as unobtrusive as possible in that it doesn't want to cause any drastic alterations to the characters that can use them, the short answer is no, Genshin doesn't need more weapon types because that's not the focus of Genshin's combat. The focus is the character. Weapons serve to assist in their own abilities.
Man, can you imagine if I could just use my own weapons other than the goddamn harpoon? I'm gonna attack them, mine the shit out of them.
Staff of Homa is no different from Dragon's Bane or Death Match in the grand scheme of things. It's just that Staff of Homa is better on her due to giving more stats that are conducive to Uta's gameplay. That's it. By that logic, adding more weapon types is not a necessity. You could attack you with an AK-47, Thor's hammer, a forklift, or a body pillow of amber for all the difference in the With that said, does that mean there's no benefit to adding weapons?
Eula might actually have a body pillow of amber.
Experience if you follow up with the correspondence on the other side. One place where I think this was done nicely was in Minecraft, believe it or not. Back in update 1.9, even though like most people I was unhappy with the combat changes overall, I appreciated the attacks being able to diversify weapon types a bit. Before 1.9, swords were the only weapons you ever wanted to use. They did the most damage and could also quantitatively damage. But after 1.9, they removed the ability to use one with a sword and had a shield. Shields negated any damage coming from attacks originating from the direction you were facing. Now that would seem kind of unfair, as the player can turn around faster than their opponent could move to attack their exposed sides or behind. In response to this, Minecraft gave access the property to disable shields for a short moment, giving players a worthwhile alternative weapon to carry in PvP. If memory serves, axes also do more damage to armor durability than swords, so you would essentially forego attacks to pull more greatly out. Kind of like how great swords in Genshin attack slowly, but are considered heavy attacks. At the moment, Genshin doesn't have any correspondence to weapon types. They have correspondence to elements, such as the Hydro Visceral being to fire damage, but there's no difference for weapon types. Within the foreseeable future, they had a content that necessitated a certain weapon type, then that could allow for there to still be a focus on the characters while adding the decision to use the weapon types. Some enemies kind of forget the Rune Hunters were a tad bit harder than Rune Guards to deal with, because they could find their effect rate any weapon type is considered to explosive bow-aimed shot to knock it down first. Let's say it has to be that big. To make it so, an enemy requires a certain number of attacks regardless of
I went the wrong way again.
I would argue that the perfect excuse to add gauntlet weapons. Most likely choose gauntlet weapons trade range for much faster attack speed. So by adding a boss or type of mob with an attack that would insta-kill you unless you landed 100 wounds on them, a gauntlet user would get much faster than a
No!
This could be a good way to retroactively balance out the existing 5 weapon types. Or on small kind of the best of the melee weapons on account of having more range than a
Oh
sword.
my fucking god, why does this suck?
Maybe they can make swords attack faster by virtue of them being lighter than a spear. Anyway, that's one way we can add more weapon types. I'm not sure how far Mihoyo's gonna go in terms of technological advancements, but if, say, that land was a more industrialized nation, then they could add a cannon weapon type. Cannons could automatically come with an explosive property that can be used to deal with enemies that need to be dealt heavy pyro damage or something. So if you can't easily achieve overload, then you can use a cannon unit instead. These kinds of scenarios would justify adding more weapon types, but therein lies the condition. Weapons, like any other game mechanic, are only as engaging as the opposition they're being used on. Version 3.7 Spiral Abyss was a frustrating one for many players, namely Floor 12. The first chamber required you to have a way to deal with both a Hydro and Cryo Abyss Herald. Prior to Dendro, the best way to deal with Hydro Heralds was with a Cryo unit, but with there being a Cryo Herald, you also needed a Pyro character. And if you look at Chamber 2, there was a Gundam Manifestation, reducing the efficiency of Raiden National, which would have been a perfect team for the first Chamber's second half. But then you have Chamber 3. Consecrated Beasts do crazy damage, necessitating a heavy shielder like Joe Lee, which prevents you from using him to safeguard you for the second half. Then that Baptist jerk sequentially cycles through a fire, water, and ice shield. This made team building uncomfortably restrictive for a lot of players, to which I agree with. However, a part of me also found it to be quite refreshing. I had to plan ahead and carefully think about what characters I wanted to bring instead of brute forcing my way through everything with the same party. Was this the best way to do it? No, but there was at least an attempt. Countless times in the past, I've mentioned that what bothers me the most about Genshin is how the such an extensive selection of units, elements, team comps, and strategies you can go for with the team's content doesn't challenge or pressure us enough to make use of all of those combinations. So in practice, there's no point in you crafting a bunch of different teams when you can just pick one team here and just be that. Because at first it might look fun, but it's not enforced on us by the game, and it would be a more fulfilling experience if it did. Like I said, the ultimate focus of Genshin is on the characters, so we don't want weapons to overtake the meta, especially given how difficult it is to get the best spending money. Would I recommend doing it in the way they did Spiral Abyss 3.7? Absolutely not. War 12 punished those who didn't wail for every character or deck about 5-star weapons and constellations. Instead, the direction I recommend they take is to double down on the character focus actually. Let me explain. Right now, we can activate the assumption that weapons in Genshin hold are one, only the character and their element types, right? Players have brought up necessarily unit weapon types don't exist. For example, we can add a Hydro 4-star Bogies, where the Bogies use our child and real life both 5 stars. We also don't have a Pyro Catalyst user. This could be an opportunity to encourage players to work on
Money? What?
Chess I'm a big fan of is Fire Emblem, and one of the most iconic mechanics is the weather triangle. Swords with axes, axes with lances, and lances with swords. They've expanded on that for some things, such as anima magic with light magic with over guard, and guard with over atom. While it doesn't prevent a sword unit from beating the ranks within, it adds a whole new level of dogfighting to how to efficiently clear the game. If there are any unstandable weapon types, I wouldn't mind having some summons of that in Genshin, such as the hypothetical I did earlier with Gauntlets. If there's a cryo enemy with a one-shot kill attack that can be disabled by doing 100 hits in 30 seconds, and a hit from a gauntlet counts as 2, then what power gauntlet boost you never use is suddenly very useful. Or to repeat the enemy that requires heavy damage but is resistant to melee weapons. This is a cannon. In totality, Genshin would not stand to benefit from having weapon types because the game currently doesn't have the right foundation to enable them. But they could in the future. I feel like there's room for a lot of exploration in this field and I wonders for the game's longevity. The only problem I see with this is that some characters might need to be reworked if that ever happens. If they ever had daggers as a weapon type, they'll need to figure out what to do with Shield, who uses a sword, but let's be honest, she is not a very sassy line. Or if they have gauntlets, what do we do with Hazel? They sort of already eliminated what remaining expression weapons have, so realistically speaking, I'm not sure they have any intentions of creating more weapon types, but even if they don't, they can still work with their current search. I wouldn't mind having a weapon triangle or something of the sort with the 5 types we have now. In fact, they already have it. Like the value reputation enemies do force damage with certain types and their main products. They just have to expand it to the rest of them. It was an excuse to use the Block Story site. It shouldn't force us to use them, but the point is to give objectives. We need more incentives. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's video. I have a question for you. If we were to ran a contest for adding new weapon properties to be given. And it would be interesting if they added something like a blue or chain, which would have very long range but bad area coverage. Or it would do more damage if it typically attack with flashes instead of on books. Something
No.
more situational but better in those situations.
Oh my god, what the fuck?
And subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter @BossFam. Join my Discord
Why is
server,
Del
and check
Lago
out the
giving me
discussion
so
videos
much
if you haven't yet. But for now,
trouble?
thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon in the next one. Take care.
One of the most important systems in Minecraft to make your equipment more powerful is the enchantment system. Using either an enchantment table, anvil, or some random garbage thrown through into a chest, you'll be able to make your tools stronger or even give them new abilities. Currently, there are 39 different enchantments in the game which can be applied to the several different tool types. With so many different enchantments though, some are bound to be worse than others. So today, I thought it'd be fun to rank all of the enchantments in the game from the worst to the best. And it certainly helps that this is one of my most requested rankings to date. Now, how am I going to be ranking these? Well, for my last few Minecraft rankings, I've just sort of gone with which thing I like more as opposed to practicality. While I feel like that was the best way to go for those previous rankings, I definitely think this one should be based on how practical and useful the enchantment is. I'm also going to consider which enchantments don't work
I'll
with
play a little
others,
bit
as you
more
can't stack
patiently
every
this time.
enchantment together on one thing. Finally, this is taken from a Java survival
Focus more on
perspective. Some
evasion
enchantments
and
may
just...
be more useful in different game modes or in Bedrock Edition, so keep in mind that this is for Java survival. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right into the worst enchantment.
Attack when it's obvious.
The
guy has obvious attack and defense phases.
Ranking, but I thought also throwing them into a tier list.
I hate that about bosses.
This first one is made up of 3 enchantments that are pretty much
Bad.
So as the worst
Game
enchantment
design.
in the game, we have 39.
You're bad.
Curse of Binding is a purely negative enchantment. It's the first one. Essentially, if you put on a piece of equipment that has this enchantment, you will not be able to take it off until it's either broken or you die. Being stuck with no way to remove your armor is obviously pretty bad. It's especially bad when it comes to the chestplate and elytra, as you have to switch on and off with what you wear. Now, luckily you can't get the curses from just enchanting the table. You have to find equipment or books with the enchantment and structures or abilities. That's not really much of a positive saying you can avoid the enchantment, but hey, it's there. So yeah, there's really no good reason for you to ever want this. See, if you're playing in multiplayer, you provide a pumpkin with first line. Then you can get one of your friends to take off a helmet activated dispenser that puts the pumpkin. Now not only is the pumpkin blocking their vision, they can't take it off. Now without dying at least, the pumpkin doesn't lose their ability. If you want to be even more do this on a server with your inventory and a dog. Watch this happen. Permanently trapped in the pumpkin. So, moral of the story, don't play with even 38 versus advantage. Also make it to where any item with this enchantment equipped will completely disappear when the player dies within the inventory. Obviously that's not something you want, but at the same time it's much less annoying to find it. If you just simply never die or have to play in hardcore mode, this curse will literally have zero effect on anything. Also, I feel like I should mention that some people have actually found a decent use for it, but it's most player exclusive. See, if you're on a server and for some reason get into a battle with another player often, you may not want to accidentally give them your gear along death, so you can apply this curse to prevent your enemies from picking up your gear and die. That's not really a use that would apply to most players at all, but I'm sure I would get comments about it if I did. Now, besides the 2 curses, what other enchantment could possibly be in this tier? Well, there are quite a few light enchantments coming up. There's only one that I believe is so terrible that it belongs in tier below the rest. In fact, I could legitimately see an argument that it's worse than Curse of Vanishing. That enchantment is 37 Fire Protection. Now, on the super surface level, this seems pretty good. This will reduce damage taken by fire and burning. Seems pretty decent, right? Until you realize you can't combine this and normal protection together. Protection reduces all normal damage sources in the game, including fire. Now, yes, Fire Protection 4 is slightly better at stopping you from burning to death than Protection 4. But think about it. You are giving up protection against literally everything else in the game to last for 25 extra seconds in lava. Protection 4 already lets you last for about 36 seconds and kill me. Literally just get out of the lava. Oh, and you want to know the best parts? Unlike the other protection enchantments, which spoiler are still quite mediocre, if you just make a fire resistance potion, it completely negates any fire damage. That way you can keep protection 4 and survive for however long you want to swimming in lava. There is literally no reason to ever want this enchantment. I'm serious, if you can come up with a good reason, let me know in the comments. The reason this is a full tier below the others is because for them, I can come up with something. But for this, there's just nothing. Oh, and as for the argument of Vanishing being better, well, since Curse of Vanishing doesn't prevent you from getting any other enchantments, while Fire Protection locks you out of normal protection, you could legitimately make the case that Fire Protection has a bigger downside than Curse of Vanishing. There's just so much wrong with this enchantment that it definitely deserves to be in this F tier. I would be shocked if anyone likes this enchantment.
Take another hit like
I also like to go through enchantments that I still find to be quite bad, but if you
Just
switch
now,
hard enough, then
game.
you have to use. Starting this off, we have 36 Bane of Arthropods. This is pretty much the bad enchantment. Everyone always calls it terrible, and it's for good reason. Essentially, it lets you do extra damage to 5 different mobs. Spiders, cave spiders, silverfish, endermites, and bees. Just like Fire Protection though, this is bad because you can't put it on the sword with sharpness, which deals extra damage to every mob. Now to be fair, Bane of Arthropods 5 does deal more damage to the mobs it affects than Sharpness 5, but let's throw an asterisk on that. See, of those 5 mobs, 3 of them have health that is so low that a Sharpness 5 sword will already kill them with 1 hit. So unless you're fighting a bee that somehow discovered how to make resistance potion, Bane of Arthropods will literally change nothing about these mobs. Then leaves us with just a cave spider or normal spider. Even then, the cave spider dies in 1 critical hit with 7 times. But while it does suck completely, like I said, there is a use for it. If you can afford to make a second sword and have a spider spawner farm, a Bane of Arthropod sword can slightly help kill the spiders faster. Yeah, I'm not pretty much. But it's something more than I can give Fire Protection. Also, I guess it can help really fighting spiders. 35, Projectile Protection. This will reduce damage taken by projectiles, but just like Fire Protection, it locks you out of normal. The reason this gets placed higher is because A, projectiles are much more common, and B, I think it's a bit more acceptable early game. If you enchant some random iron armor piece to get projectile protection, sure it's kind of disappointing to not get the normal one, but it can hold you over until you start to get some real fear. I don't really have much to say on this one, if you get sniped by skeletons possibly, it can be nice, but otherwise, give it 34, Blast Protection. This is our final enchantment that locks us out of default protection. Dude, I'm so tired. This will be able to reduce damage given to the player from explosions. While yes, explosions are a bit less common than projectiles, explosions are significantly more deadly. A good way to show this off is the fact that a point-blank med explosion in the nether is enough to kill you on hard mode even with protection 4. So if you survive the blast, hard forward blast protection. Overall, it's still definitely a worse protection, but in some very niche scenarios, I could see it somewhat being used. 33, Quick Top. This is our final B tier enchantment. What it does is allow the player to go blind with their trident while they throw it. That seems like a pretty cool gimmick, and in all honesty it is. There are, however, 2 things holding it back. For one, it only works when you're blind. You're not even able to throw it outside of it. Yeah, that's really annoying. I don't think they did anything with teleportation. What makes it worse is the fact that this can't be on a trident with either loyalty or channeling, the 2 most important enchantments. There are still some uses for this regardless. Like it can be somewhat fun to fight with underwater, and the ability can also work while it's raining. The best realistic use I can think of is getting an Elytra boost in the rain without using any rockets. You go pretty fast with it too, so it's a lot of fun to use a Riptide enchantment to fly around. This is definitely the best of this tier, but it's still hard to call it good with so many limitations. Onto our C tier, this is where the enchantments start to get pretty decent. The ones in this tier either have no downside to just a whatever use, or a minimal downside for a solid use. 32, Frostwalker. This is one of the game's treasure enchantments, meaning the only way to get it is from a structure, villager, or fishing. It's exclusive to boots, will allow anyone using it to walk on water by turning it into frosted ice. The special kind of ice will go away after a while, and the size of the ice circle around you depends on the level of the enchantment. One other cool thing you can do is put these boots on an armor stand, as it will actually still work, even if it's not being used by a player. While this all sounds nice, it does sadly clash with another enchantment, Depth Strider, which I find to be much better for water travel. Well, hold on just a second now, this also makes it to where you can walk on magma blocks while taking 0 damage. How did I make this more epic? The reason I put it up in this tier is because of the armor stand stuff, as I have seen some pretty neat things done with it. You can make some bridges across water, which can be helpful in some scenarios, but it also doesn't let you sprint jump with it, so it's really annoying to actually use. 31, Knockback. This might just be the single most controversial enchantment. Essentially what it does is make your attack send the mob or person receiving it much further away. Now there are decent reasons on both sides to either like or hate these enchantments, but in my opinion, they kind of sucks. Most of the time when you're killing something, you're going to want to pick up what it drops, and knockback can make it much more annoying to do. It's especially bad if you're fighting on any sort of high-up place and you send your target flying off. Now with that said, there are some reasons to like this. If you're simply fighting to survive an attack, knocking your opponent away to give you a chance to escape can be very helpful. Then again, if it's something like a skeleton or legs, knockback can give them an easier chance to take you with projectiles. Generally, I try to avoid having knockback if I can, but at the same time, I usually don't care that much about it. Really, I think the best place for knockback are in PvP modes like Skywars, so not too long to deploy. But since this is based on survival mode, I think knockback is pretty weak. In a similar vein, we have 30 Punch. This does exactly the same thing as knockback, but it applies to bows instead. The reason I find this to be better is because if you're using your bow, it's usually because the mob's already far enough away, so the punch will have a less detrimental effect. Plus, hitting yourself with punch arrows is mildly entertaining, so yeah, I think the bow version is a smidge better. 29. Piercing. Okay, to be totally honest with you all, I never use crossbows. I'm sure the crossbow fandom is up in flames right now, but my point is that I'm going to be a fairly bad judge of where his enchantments belong. Some of your arrows shoot through up to 5 different mobs. I'm just not very sure what scenario this would be that helpful. The advancement where you have to kill 5 different mobs with one arrow is cool. Besides that, I can probably take a bunch of things to get excited with this. Also, I guess it can sort of work like an affinity enchantment with crossbows since you can pick up arrows afterwards. It's just kind of weird. 28. Multi-shot. Multi-shot will simply shoot out 3 arrows instead of 1. I just think this effect is a bit too specific. Like, yeah, we got 3 zombies coming towards you and they're all from different space apart, then this can be somewhat helpful, but it's mostly just the whatever you can. It doesn't hurt too much to get those since it can only lock you out of piercing, so I'd still recommend getting it if you can. Okay, after writing this segment, I started messing around with this fireworks, and it was actually quite a lot of fun.
But every shot uses 9 durability.
Yeah, apparently multi-shot always uses 3 durability, and using a firework uses 3 as well, so combined, it does 9. Whatever. Multi-shot. 27. Door. So this is another enchantment like knockback that I've seen opinions would go on. Essentially, it'll turn the player into a cactus, so if anything hits them while they have thorns on their armor, the attack will take some self-damage. This damage is really small though, and it also comes with the downside of using up durability for every thorn attack. Now granted, durability is a much less important problem now with mending existing, but it's still kind of a dumb downside to throw on. I don't actively avoid or try to get thorns now. If I get it, I get it, and if I don't, I won't. 26. Sweeping Edge. This is a job exclusive enchantment for sword. You let the little wind thing that comes out of your sword do a bit more damage to some mobs. This is just kind of mildly helpful while killing mobs in either a farm or a light group. Like thorns, it doesn't really do that much, so I've never been super thankful to have this. It doesn't have any downsides though, so it gets the edge. Thank you, yes, I know I'm way. Alright, time for B2. 25 quick charge. This lets you charge the shot for a crossbow quicker. I mean, that's pretty cool. Too bad I don't care about crossbows. 24 hail. This will deal extra damage to any water-based mobs. Axolotls, dolphins, guardians, elder guardians, squid, glow squid, turtles, goldfish types, and ground life. Alright, so I guess it can deal extra damage to 11 mobs. But if we look at it like we did with Bane of Arthropods again, the 4 fish die in 1 hit without any enchantment, and the dolphin, squid, and glow squid die in 1 hit with Shepherd's Spy, so really equally effective on the 4 mobs. These are much less common than spiders though, so why is it so much higher? Well, it's because of the tool this is for. This can only be applied to tridents, which can't have sharpness anyway, so it doesn't confirm it. If you have a trident, you might as well just try and get this. It can be somewhat helpful for raiding ocean monuments, though not really at any other point. At least for now. This is actually the enchantment I think is the most different between Java and Bedrock, because on Bedrock, this is significantly better. It doesn't just deal damage to aquatic mobs, but any mob that's in water, including while it's raining. That is much less situational, and I think is a good way of making the weather system in Minecraft a bit more interesting. Players can then get excited for rain as they have a chance to use their tridents much more effectively. What I've heard, this functionality will be coming to Java someday too, which will greatly boost the code on the rain. It does, but as of 1.20, I think this is where it belongs.
Halfway through.
23 fire aspect. And for some of you, this may be a bit low, so let me explain. This can be applied to swords so that your attacks can light anything hit by it on fire. This can obviously be helpful as the fire will deal occasional damage to the other mob, which makes it die a bit quicker. This also has the benefit of cooking any food the mob will drop without the need of the furnace. In my opinion, that's really this enchantment's best use, as it can save quite a bit of time. Once you get to a point in the game where you have access to easy bulky carrots, though, this enchantment's usefulness takes a bit of a nosedive. The fire doesn't really do that much damage, you can probably hit the mob enough times to kill it before the fire really has any sort of effect. What really hurts this though are endermans. If they get set on fire, they'll constantly teleport like crazy as they take damage, and we can get a pain to fight them. I'd say it's still overall pretty solid, just not one of the best, as it does have some downsides. 22 flame. This is the exact same thing but for bugs. It can also save you some extra arrows, so the bird may be able to finish off a bomb that would normally require as any arrow. 21. This will make fishing faster, as the fish in the water will be attracted to your gun. This is pretty essential if you ever want to go fishing, as it makes the process much more efficient. The same goes with 20, Luck of the Sea. This will improve your odds of getting a treasure item from fishing. Those treasure items are enchanted bows, enchanted fishing rods, bait tags, saddles, nautilus shells, and most importantly, enchantment bugs. That's a pretty decent selection of items, but if you saw my video on Minecraft items that became useless, you know that I think fishing is a bit on the pointless side these days. I still quite enjoy doing it though, and you can absolutely still get stuff from it, so I think these enchantments will be 19 Twister. This will be applied to legging or uses use anyone wearing it. At level 3, it'll be a professional walking experience. And that sounds pretty cool, and I was gonna place it up higher, but then I thought about it, and you just let go of the shit. Yeah, it's helpful in ancient cities, I guess, but
yeah.
the only place where you can get this enchantment.
Fucking hell.
That, I don't think this would help you. It's definitely not bad, and I'd rather have it than not have it. It's just that its use isn't as important as some of what we have coming up. 18, Smite. This will deal extra damage to undead mobs, which is our biggest list of these mob-specific extra damage enchantments. The mobs that are affected by Smite are the zombie, skeleton, zombie villager,
now we're in the lake
wither
episode,
skeleton,
which is the longest.
skeleton horse, stray, husk, phantom, drowned, and zoglin. And also the zombie horse, I guess, but they're not really. Right away, that list is better than the others we've seen, because not only is it bigger, but these mobs are also more common and generally have more health.
Jesus.
Having a boss that takes extra damage from the enchantment in the form of the Wither is also a pretty big deal, though he is still pretty easy in the Java edition, even with just sharpness. Of course, we still have to consider the downside that Smite can't be combined with sharpness, but there is one small solution here. Well, you can only get Smite in the enchantment table while using a sword, and Axe still can't have the Smite enchantment applied to it with the anvil. So you can have a sharpness sword and a
I
Smite
don't like
axe
this
to deal with the
chapter
game's different
M3.
mobs.
The
While I'm
original
sure
is
some
better
people would
since
place
it
this
added
quite
image.
well, I
This
think
one's
being
just
able to
black.
put this on an axe saves it. A critical hit from a Smite
Which is
5
boring.
axe can one-hit kill mobs like Zombified Piglin, which is good, as if the Piglin dies to one strike, it won't anger the others around it. You definitely don't need Smites, but it's a good one to have. 17. Channeling. To me, this enchantment is the reason tridents are worth collecting at all. I've mentioned in the past how annoying the grind is to get one, so without this, I probably wouldn't even bother. But what does it do? Well, if it's thundering, this will make any mob you hit with a thrown trident get struck by lightning. Now, at first, this may just seem like a cool aesthetic way to deal more damage, but there is a bit more to lightning than what's on the surface. See, there are 5 mobs that have special reactions to getting struck by lightning. Pigs will turn into Zombified Piglin, villagers will turn into a witch, mushrooms will turn brown, turtles will sometimes drop moles, most importantly, creepers will become charge creepers. These are more powerful versions of the mob that deal a bigger and more deadly explosion. However, if it manages to kill either a zombie, skeleton, creeper, or piglin, it'll drop its head. This is the only way to get these heads, besides the skeleton in ancient cities. And they're some of my favorite decorative blocks in the entire game. Before this enchantment, getting these was a massive pain, especially considering we didn't even have lightning rods. So I'm always super grateful for this enchantment's addition. Obviously, it's not as practical as some others, as it's still quite specific, but I like it a lot, so it's placing fairly high. I'll also work a lightning rod, so if you want, you can make machine.
Human radio silent for 3 hours.
A-tier time. These enchantments are, in my opinion, near
Won't let it happen
essentials. Except for the first one, because I had no clue where to put it.
Still looking
16
for whatever
Infinity. This is by far the hardest enchantment to place on the entire list. If I had made this video a few years ago, this would have easily been S tier, but now it's kind of confusing to judge. You can put this on a bow and it'll make you have infinite ammo as long as you have 1 arrow in your inventory. Yeah, so that's obviously really good. So why is it lower than it would have been? Well, this is the only enchantment in the entire game to not be able to combine with the mending enchantment. This is a huge detriment, as not having mending makes any tool significantly more vulnerable to breaking. So I'm stuck. I could definitely see an argument to put this up higher despite the mending problem, as it saves collecting arrows, but at the same time, is just collecting arrows even that difficult? Making a skeleton farm, especially if you have a spawner, will easily get you more arrows than you could ever need. So really the debate is, do you want an unbreakable bow that requires some arrow farming, or do you want a bow that will eventually break, but you don't need to collect arrows? Generally, I think with the mending bow, which is why I put Infinity this low. If you put it up higher on your own list, I totally get it. But for me, I think the beginning of A tier is the best spot. 15. Soul Speed. This will increase movement speed on Soul Sand and Soul Soil. While this may seem a bit too specific to be helpful, the speed increase is actually incredibly good. You go much faster with this enchantment on Soul Soil than you would running on land normally. That's also why this is so much higher than Swift Speed, as this actually gives the player a faster way to travel instead of just making their slowest movement speed match their default speed. This is also pretty essential in traversing a Soul Sand Valley. In fact, I'd say this enchantment makes the biome so fun that it's one of my favorites in the game. Now there are some downsides which are important to mention. First off, the obvious. It only does stuff on Soul Sand or Soul Soil, which means if you want to use this to travel somewhere, you'll need to set up the Soul Soil path first. That doesn't take too long though, so it's not that big of a deal. What kind of is though, is the fact that every few blocks of Soul Soil you walk on, the boots lose durability. I really don't think this was necessary, and while the loss rate isn't terrible if you have a breaking 3, it's still kind of important.
Look at all these red herbs I have.
I would still say the positives outweigh the negatives though,
But
so
I have
quite like
no
this.
green
The
herbs.
enchantment is annoying, so you have to get lucky with the big ones that suck. 14. Aqua Affinity. This one is nice and simple. It makes the player mine faster underwater. More specifically, being underwater will normally make mining take 5 times as long, but Aqua Affinity completely ignores that. This is helpful in a ton of scenarios, like gathering blocks from ocean monuments, raiding ocean ruins, just collecting any block from underwater, and so on. I think this is a pretty essential enchantment for any underwater activity. Speaking of, 13. Restoration. This will also allow you to breathe underwater for longer. But yeah, this is helpful in all scenarios Aqua Affinity is, and even more on combat, since it helps you if you want to travel underwater as well. But for our final water enchantment, we have 12 Depth Strike. This can be applied to foods and will increase movement speed in water. Every time I start a new world, I forget just how slow water movement is without this enchantment. It is incredibly useful for speeding up travel pretty much anywhere. You're bound to run into a lake or ocean every now and then in the overworld, so Depth Strider can make crossing them much less painful. Oh yeah, one last fun thing. If you combine this with the Soul Speed and Dolphin's Grace effect, you can travel at the speed of light. Obviously the setup is quite difficult since you need to have dolphins, but this is really cool. 11. Loyalty. This is definitely the best Trident enchantment, as I think it's basically essential if you ever want to use the item. Basically, this makes it to where the Trident will come back to you after you throw it. It's incredibly helpful, as you really don't want to lose your Trident after working so hard to get it. This is even able to phase through blocks as well, so you can get as silly as you want throwing this around anywhere. But yeah, this being as helpful as it is makes Riptide suck all the more since they can't be combined. I really think you need to have loyalty if you plan on using a Trident. But now we have our top 10 for the S tier, what I think are the best of the best. If you're enchanting stuff and don't have these 10 yet, you're not done. Get back to work. You have 24 hours. 10. Feather Falling. This is exclusive to boots and will produce fall damage. And if you like to get a bit silly like me, you'll need it a lot when you inevitably jump down a massive hole for the fun things. It's also worth noting that unlike the other protection enchantments, this can combine with normal protection, which is what makes it as good as it is. Also, I'm just gonna say right now that the explanations for these top 10 enchantments will likely be quite short since they're all up here for fairly obvious reasons. 9. Looting. This will not only increase the amount of items mobs drop when killed, but it will also increase the chance of getting a rare drop from the mobs. This is most notably important when getting Wither Skeleton Skulls as it boosts the chance per kill from 2.5% to 5.5%, which is a significant boost. It's not just them though, as getting rare drops and more plentiful drops is good for pretty much every mob. Looting is very powerful. 8. Fortune. This is very similar to looting, but it goes on tools instead and will make most commonly ores drop more resources when mined. Diamonds, for example, go from just dropping 1 per block to up to 4 per block. Also, love how my luck is so terrible that someone in the comments thought I didn't have fortune since I got 1 diamond from literally every ore. Very cool game. I'm sure you all can tell that getting more resources from ores is pretty dang helpful. However, this does actually have a pretty significant downside that makes me not want to place it higher than this. First off, it can't combine with Soap Touch, but that makes sense because they do entirely different things, so I'm not talking about this for it. No, the downside I'm talking about has to do with shovels. See, if you watch my wording carefully, I said it was mostly ores that are affected, but there are a few other blocks. One of those just so happens to be gravel, where a fortune shovel will increase the chance of it to drop flint. Flint is only helpful with crafting flint and steel and arrows, which are not really recipes I think others use that often, at least often enough to want a large supply of flint. Gravel, on the other hand, is very useful, as it's one of the main components in concrete, which is one of my favorite building blocks. Having a fortune shovel makes collecting large amount of gravel one more difficult than working without it, so in all honesty, I would rather take an unenchanted shovel over a Fortune 3 shovel. Especially since Fortune 3 guarantees a flint drop every time. So since Fortune can legitimately be quite detrimental on one of the game's main tools, I decided to keep it kinda low on the top 10.
So
I still like more than looting since having more ores is generally better than
all
having
your
more mob
gacha
drops
rolls are
most of the time.
predetermined
The
as
shovel
soon as
may
you load a new game,
7 power,
and you can't
6
save
sharpness.
scum it.
This will make your weapons do more damage to anything it hits, with power made for bows and sharpness made for swords. It's
What
very,
you get
very
is what
simple,
you
but
get.
also very, very obviously
really
important.
sucks.
It saves a ton of time attacking stuff and are basically the essential weapon enchantments. 5. Soap Touch. This might be a bit of a weird choice to put above those two, but I think Soap Touch just barely edges them out for me. This allows you to pick up pretty much any block the way it was when you mined it. If you're still confused what I mean, certain blocks like stone will turn into
thought I
another
had
block
enough.
you
My
mine,
bad.
in this case being cobblestone. If you have Soap Touch though, you'll just get stone when you mine it instead, which is very helpful as stone is used in a ton of crafting recipes. You know what, let's just go over all the block Soap Touch effects. All of the ores, snow layers,
I don't
snow
wanna do
blocks,
the shitty
amethyst
range.
budget clusters, coral blocks, deep slates, ender chest, gilded blackstone, nylium, warp nylium, stone, bee nest, beehive, ice, hacked ice, blue ice, bookshelves, chiseled bookshelves, clay, decorated pots, glass panes, glowstone, grass blocks, mycelium, podzol, gravel, leaves, melon, mushroom blocks, all the smoke blocks, sea lanterns, campfires, soul campfires, turtle eggs, twisting vines, and weeping vines. That is a large selection of blocks, so Soap Touch is incredibly helpful. This lets you do so many things, like saving time with getting stone, always getting gravel without the risk of flint, being able to carry an ender chest with you to greatly expand your inventory space, and so on. I guess you could argue that sometimes it's bad to have Soap Touch, as sometimes stuff like Deep Slate is worse than its normal drop, but a majority of the time, this is so useful that it far outweighs its
Annoyed I
weaknesses.
don't have the fun.
I always put it on my
My bad.
shovel and make a second Soap Touch pickaxe. It's an incredibly useful enchantment. 4. Protection. This reduces damage from all normal sources besides magic and falling. Obviously, having more defense on all your armor is pretty dang useful. I think it's better than having more attack strength, as defense stops you from dying, and Protection 4 does a really good job of that. Unless you fall in the void, I find it very difficult to actually die once you obtain Protection 4 down right here, so I always make it my priority. 3. Efficiency. This makes you mine quicker, and seeing as you almost always have to be mining in this game,
Why is there
I
a
think it's
beetle
pretty
charm?
clear
That
it's
really
so
doesn't make any
This
sense.
enchantment more than any other can save hundreds, if not thousands of hours. Mining is essential in getting resources and building pretty much anything, so if you want to try and take on big projects, you have to have efficiency. It also doesn't go flip with any enchantments at all, so there's zero excuse not to get it. Safe to say, this is easily one of the best enchantments in the game. Despite that though, the top 2 are so good that I think they deserve their own S+ tier. I struggled a lot with the exact placings of every other enchantment in this video, but these 2 were locked in as numbers 1 and 2 from the very start. 2. Upgrading. At level 3, this multiplies the durability of any any tool by 3 top. And I mean any tool, as one thing that sets these two enchantments apart is the fact that they can go onto literally any tool with durability. Weapons, armor, tools, elytra, and so on can all get this and benefit greatly from it. Obviously, if you're spending so much time enchanting your stuff, you're going to want to have it for as long as possible, so Unbreaking 3 stops it from breaking so soon. But if you just have Unbreaking 3, it will break eventually. Even if you go repair it in the anvil, it will eventually get too expensive. That's where our easily #1 enchantment comes in. I'm sure everyone guessed it, it's Mending. This will automatically repair any tool's durability when the player picks up XP. The amount to repair is basically the amount of XP collected, and it can only do so with the item being held form. This is stupid powerful, because you can just go to an XP farm for a few minutes whenever your tools get low, and you'll be back like nothing happened. There's no mending limit, so this enchantment basically gives your tools infinite power. Heck, stuff like swords, armor, and fishing rods will basically never break, because killing mobs and fishing stuff up gives you XP. So after you use the tool, you collect more XP than what's required to repair it. I don't think there is any way mending could not be #1. It makes the game so much more convenient to play. Sure, it is a treasure enchantment, so it can be somewhat tedious to get it from a villager, but if there's any enchantment that deserves that status, it's mending. So for making Minecraft so much more convenient to play, mending is by far the best enchantment in the entire game. But anyways, that's it for this video. Do you think Lago SUCKS sucks because it makes it harder to get lily pads for fishing? Let me know in the comments. This is one of my favorite videos I've ever got to make. I knew I'd enjoy it, but I was not expecting to have so much to say on all of these enchantments. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video as well. I also plan on doing a structure and biome ranking in the future, but if you have any other ranking ideas, feel free to let me know in the comments. But anyway, Mario. But anyways, try buttons for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.
Tears of the Kingdom is an incredible game that annoyed me to no end. At certain times, the game gave me the feeling of childlike wonder and amazement, like I've never felt before, and 10 minutes later, the game had me almost throw my controller at a wall. At least in my opinion, the game deserves every 10 out of 10 it got, and it deserves all the Game of the Year awards it is inevitably going to win. But I also think I've never played a game with a worse control scheme. The game features incredible moments that are crafted with so much love and care, yet it also features some of the most advanced design decisions I've ever seen. To put it mildly, Tears of the Kingdom is a game whose heights are incredibly high. But, at least in my humble opinion, it is also a game whose lows are really low. But weirdest of all, a lot of those problems would be easily avoidable. The longer I think about the game and all its problems, the more it has me worried about the current state of Nintendo. So, I believe there is a story hidden in the depths of Tears of the Kingdom. A story about Nintendo's priorities when it comes to game design. And a story about something that is currently going on in the company that has me worried about the future of the Zelda franchise as a whole. In this video, we're hopefully going to dig up this story piece by piece. We're going to discuss the entire game chronologically by discussing certain aspects of its design along the way. We're going to discuss how the game improves over graphic quality in certain areas while amplifying Greg's problems in others. We'll dissect the combat system and discuss how the game got made in the first place. We will find out why I always accidentally throw away my weapon when I actually want to use Ultra Hand, and why the incredible physics system has me worried about the next Zelda game, and much, much more. As for spoilers, since we're going chronologically through the game, the spoilers will definitely ramp up unfortunately. So if you're currently playing the game, you can just stop watching when it begins to spoil it. But just to be clear, in its entirety, this video is going to spoil the entirety of the level, including the final boss fight. But unfortunately, it is not the final boss fight in the background yet. Let's just be elaborately torturing for it. Alright, we got a ton to cover today, so better let's get this going. My name is Steve, you're watching Steve Perspective, who plays the positive perspective on interesting aspects of great games. This is The Legend of Zelda. Tears of the Kingdom.
Nick killed himself.
Our story to save the mystical land of Hyrule starts before Hyrule is civilization. The game begins with us and Zelda investigating strange ruins below Hyrule Castle. They reach on the wall, tells us the story of the Zonai, a legendary race who lived in Hyrule thousands of years ago and who defeated and defeated the Demon King who discovered a mysterious creature bound by some sort of magic. And then here's the narrative not suddenly history, and we have no idea what is actually going on. A huge part of the story of the game is it put together what actually happened in the sequence. That's a real unique approach to telling the story of a Zelda game, and while the narrative certainly has problems, I found the way it's presented refreshing, and I think it works well for the game. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The second we arrive at the demonic creature, the spell is broken. The creature awakens in a surprisingly dark and unsettling scene. Suddenly, Zelda becomes attacked by a dark magical force. Link is able to step in at just the right moment, but the darkness steals away his powers and corrupts his arm. We aren't able to beat the creature, even the Master Sword breaks. The creature talks to us for a moment, telling us that it knows who we are before lifting the entire castle of Hyrule into the sky. Amongst the chaos, Zelda drops into the abyss, and a strange bright light makes her disappear. Meanwhile, Link gets saved by a magical hand. This hand belongs to Raoul, former Zonai King of Hyrule, and it is the game's excuse to give us new powers, namely Ultra Hand to build their machines, ascend to ascend to ceilings, fuse to fuse items on for weapons and shields, and Amplify, which allows us to turn certain objects back in time. Then disappear to the Master Sword is gone, Hyrule is in danger, and we find ourselves in the middle of a floating island. That's the main premise of the game. At this point, we have no clue what happens to Zelda and to the Master Sword. So those pieces are our main task of the game. This entire island is a tutorial area, and our first task is to gain our main abilities in 4 shrines across the floating island. And with this, the game officially begins. And it started with a test at one point, retrieve the Sheikah Slate, now known as Pure Attack, and are taught that we can mark places in the distance by viewing a blue device. But this is the same shrine show, one far distance on a mountain and one far away in land close to a lake. So for whatever reason, I didn't notice the shrine at the lake, but only focused on the one on top of the mountain, which is the second one.
It's still there.
See, silly me, but the game wants me to visit this shrine first. I even marked it on the game Pure Attack, thinking that this is the first objective. So I found a way to the mountain where this place, which was a bit weird, but possible. This took me to a cold area where I cooked a meal to stay warm there and figured out a way to climb secretly and climb to the surface, which was surprisingly complicated for a tutorial area. Then again, I solved a problem for a Zelda veteran. And would you believe it? I actually made it to the second shrine first. The only problem, I had no idea that I just broke the intended tutorial sequence. After the second shrine, the one that I did first, the game tutorializes the flight machines. Those bring us directly to where we need to go after we equip both shrines. It's not where I had to go next. I had to go to the first lake shrine that I missed earlier. Once I finally made it to this shrine, there was no clear path back towards the temple, so I actually had to move back up the mountain for a second time, or in other words, I played through Tears of the Kingdom, starting with almost an hour of completely unnecessary movement. So am I mad at the game because of this? Well, I certainly was at the moment, but looking back, it's probably more my fault than anything. The game shows the great shrine to go to much more prominently. I just missed it, that's why it's ridiculous. The reason I'm bringing this up is because I think it's a lot of the game's design because I think the fact that the game did not prevent me from sequence breaking the tutorial is really interesting. There's a lot of unintended design here. Here's the Kingdom is a game that must shield players from frustration, like so many other AAA games. Tears values player freedom higher than values mental frustration, because it did not stop me from sequence breaking the tutorial. Even though, it overall had to be a frustrating experience.
Well then.
Finally enough, I can respect that. Here's the Kingdom is all about player freedom. The game is truly about freedom. It also means that if I really want to frustrate myself, well, then I should have the freedom to do so. The game allows me to have a bad time with it.
Nice.
My personal guess is that whenever the question arose, we should limit the player's freedom somewhere.
He was too strong of an enemy. In the end, I could only rely on his own folly to beat himself.
So overall, I ended up not enjoying my first couple of hours with Tears of the Kingdom because I did it. But I also kind of respected the game allowed me to make it. Cool, Ray. What's next? Well, next let's discuss how the shrines in Tears of the Kingdom are designed.
I apparently lost one ball,
as it turns out,
which kinda sucks.
designed in a different way than they were in Breath of the Wild. incredibly interesting game. In Witness, we find ourselves seemingly without a purpose, stranded
He
on
lives.
a mysterious island that we have to explore. On this island, there is nothing but one so simple storyline puzzle boards. Witness is a game about nothing but exploring an island, solving simple storyline puzzles. And it is great. It's great for a simple reason, which is also the reason why we're talking about the game in a video about Tears of the Kingdom. There are hundreds of those simple puzzles, and we can already reach most of those at the very beginning of the game. We can reach them.
Okay, there you go. Finally.
Solve them yet. And this is not because we lack an item or a necessary skill.
Actually
it is
killed
because
himself
our
for real now.
imaginary puzzle solving level is high enough, and it isn't because we can possibly or those become solvable or anything. The reason is something different, something much more interesting. We lack the knowledge on how exactly those puzzles work. Here's an example. Early in the game, we run into puzzle boards that feature little black dots all over
never
them.
mind,
And
there
we
it
have
is.
no idea what to do with those black dots. However, if we explore
Hopefully
the
I can
island
still pick it back
at
up.
some point we'll stumble into a couple of puzzle terminals that are deliberately designed to teach us what to do with those black dots. We have to draw our line through all of them to solve the puzzle. So the puzzles we've seen previously were already solvable. We just lack the knowledge on how to do it. The only barrier between us and the game is our knowledge of the
I don't
game
think I can
systems.
get it
There is
back.
no character progression with us. Instead of leveling up our character, we become better at the game because our own understanding of its systems grows. The whole game is designed around this idea, and in my opinion, this is one of the most interesting ways to design games. Barely anything feels as rewarding as a reward and the knowledge on how to interact with the world does. Which easily brings us back to our quest to save Princess Zelda. So what has all of this to do with the shrines in Tears of the Kingdom? Well, interestingly enough, a lot of the shrines in Tears of the Kingdom are very similar to a sequence of small puzzles that teaches us how the black dots and the Witness work. Most of the shrines in Tears aren't really puzzles. Most of them are actually tutorials that disguise as puzzles and teach us about one element of the physics engine. They might explain to us that we were able to ride the falling stones back to the Sky Islands by reversing time, as the shrine near the Woodlands Dales does. Another one might teach us how to use a certain sonar device, like the nail thing, or it might teach us about unique interaction between our powers, like this one that explains that we are able to use Ultra Hand to draw a path for an object first and then to ride it backwards by using Rewind. The same way, the Witness teaches us the black dot mechanic by showing us a series of puzzles that start simple and escalate in difficulty. Shrines often teach us unique interactions in the physics engine by showing us first the most simple interaction and then by slowly escalating it. And it's great. The shrines even feature a chest nearby that allows us to immediately test our newfound knowledge. When the shrines are at their best, they slowly expand our horizon of the game's physics system and lead to
I can't
slowly
see the
mastering
treasure.
the game. It's a really clever and smart way to teach us all the different interactions in the game, but it also comes with a drawback. If we already figured out how to do something ourselves, like I'm guessing most people probably already know how to build a flying machine by the time we reach this shrine, then the shrines lose all that makes them special. Instead of being clever hidden tutorials that turn into mindless build vehicle boxes, which are the shrines at their worst. But overall, the shrines are a great improvement over Breath of the Wild. They're a really clever way to teach us all the different aspects of the physics engine without putting us in text tutorials. Great job on this from Nintendo. Sadly, it's a different story for the dungeons, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. So after finishing the tutorial island, we're finally allowed to land in the center of Hyrule and are sent to the first town in the game. Here we unlock the paraglider after a short quest and we learned about 4 regional phenomena that we're supposed to investigate. Those 4 phenomena are the 4 main quests that lead to the 4 dungeons in the game. The same way they already did in Breath of the Wild. One leads us to the Sora, one to the Gorns of Death Mountain, one to the Gerudo of the Desert, and one sends us to Rito Village. The game hints at this area being meant to be explored first, and it's where we are heading. So Rito Village is troubled by the sudden appearance of the weather phenomenon that caused a massive blizzard in the area. We have to first find Tatooine and afterwards make our way together with him towards the center of this weird weather phenomenon. So the path towards the Wind Temple is one of the highlights in the game. We ascend higher and higher, far higher than we might think at first. It almost feels as if we were a bit out of bounds when we suddenly break through the clouds and dive towards the temple. Then the music suddenly kicks in and we experience one of the few moments of triumph while we dive down towards the ship in the center of the hurricane. It's a really strong moment. Sadly, the ship itself is not. Let's talk about the dungeons in Tears
There
of
it
the
is.
Kingdom. The dungeons
Oh my
in Tears
God.
of the Kingdom are, I don't know how else to put it, they are like neat train wrecks, but they're really no highlights of the game either. They just are. They're filled with mediocre puzzles. They all have theming, like the ship, but the theming is realized in a weak and careless way. Like, you know, this is a ship, but ignoring the shape of the thing, there's nothing that makes it a ship. There are no ship objects that we can interact with, or that we maybe even have to fuse together. Puzzles don't have anything to do with the ship. They are arbitrarily placed here. The enemies aren't pirates or anything. The dungeon is just a ship shaped shrine, not an actual ship. Now, the only criticism that the dungeon is in Tears of the Kingdom follow the same activate 5 devices that are spread over the play structure that the dungeons in Breath of the Wild already used. But I personally don't think that this is the problem here. The real problem is that the dungeons are non-linear. The real problem is that the dungeons lack any sort of personality. There is no story to this ship. It doesn't feature the rooms the ship would feature, like say a rowing room or a captain chamber or whatever. The whole thing lacks the feeling of being a real place, and I think that's why so many people, myself included, ended up finding the dungeons disappointing. Which is a pity, because the moment we descend onto the ship the first time, it is really hard not to feel the potential. Anyway, at least the boss fights are alright this time. Alright, you're right. With the first dungeon boss down, Tulin's spirit is unlocked. From now on, we were able to summon a gust of wind while flying. Hooray! Our next stop is Sora's Domain, but before we visit everyone's favorite fish folk, let's talk about something different first. Something unique to Tears of the Kingdom, which is, at least in my opinion, the most drastic change for Breath of the Wild. Let's talk about a complete shift in design philosophy. Let's talk about the farm area, where Tears of the Kingdom burns down the roots from which it grew. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about pony points. Stardew Valley is a game about living a simple life as a farmer. In Stardew Valley, we grow crops, breed chicken, and befriend townspeople. On the surface, Stardew Valley is a very relaxing experience. But this is only on the surface, because beneath this lovely facade, living a relaxing life as a farmer, beneath this video game is hidden. A hidden video game that is the gaming equivalent to crack cocaine. Stardew Valley is an insanely addictive video game. I can't tell you how often I picked up Stardew Valley to play for an hour before I go and cook something, only to finally manage to put it down at 3 AM, sitting in front of a bunch of empty chip bags. It's a game that completely consumes me every time I pick it up. So here's the interesting question. Why Stardew Valley so addictive? What is it that makes this game so hard to put down? And what has all of this to do with Tears of the Kingdom? Here's the thing. Stardew Valley is not only a game about farming. It is also a game about rebuilding a community. At the core of the game is the community center. One of the main tasks in the game is to rebuild the old community center. So how do we rebuild this center? Well, we do it by bringing certain items to it, which complete certain tasks. Whenever we complete one of those tasks, we get a small reward. Whenever we complete an entire section of the community center, we get a huge, sometimes game-changing reward. The different community center bundles are our goals for the first month of the game, and I believe that those goals make the game so incredibly addictive. At any moment while playing, we have like 20 different tasks in mind. Catch a certain fish, plant pumpkin during autumn, befriend smell gold, make mayonnaise, forage certain plants, and so on. The game grounds us in goals that we can complete in any order. Goals that are all at the back of our minds while playing. It gives us something meaningful to work towards at every moment of gameplay. It's one of the greatest strengths of Stardew Valley. Here's the thing, however, there's another way of thinking about all the different tasks in the community center. All of them require us to progress in some way, and all of them lead to a reward. We can also think about them as progression bars that lead to a reward in space. Those small progression bars are actually part of even bigger progression bars that lead to the entire room to the community center, which is yet another small item that leads to a bigger progression bar community center as a whole. Befriending the townspeople is a progression system that is headed towards a reward. Making our way down the mine is a progression system that leads to a meaningful reward. Even something as simple as planting a plant and watering it every morning is a tiny progression system in itself that leads to a tiny mini reward. Money Viewer wants to sell the grow plant. Stardew Valley grounds us in different meaningful progression bars that we all have access to at once. I believe that this is where Stardew Valley gets its quality from, and it's great. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with this. It's just a thing that they just a couple of things with Tears of the Kingdom. And with this, we're finally able to talk about Tears of the Kingdom again. And when I say Tears of the Kingdom, I actually mean Breath of the Wild. See, Breath of the Wild doesn't do progression systems that lead to a reward. Breath of the Wild actually goes out of its way to avoid it. There are only 3 systems in Breath that allow the player to progress. It's the Shrine Forts, the Korok Seeds, and the Fairy Upgrades. That's an incredibly low amount of systems for a game the size of Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is all about intrinsic motivation to explore all it has to offer. It is almost entirely driven by our own curiosity. The game says experiencing the world is your reward, and if you don't like doing something, it won't nudge you into doing it by giving you a feeling of progression. And I respect that the game has this. It makes the exploration feel a bit empty and pointless at times, but it is also different to all the other games out there. Breath of the Wild certainly has problems that come from its neglect to add of progression systems, but it also makes the game really unique to play. However, I believe it is also the reason why a lot of people bounce off heavily on Breath of the Wild. Lack of progression systems and rewards makes exploring the world just a little bit meaningless after a while, and for some people that's just a bigger problem than for others. Okay, so here is where this gets interesting. Stardew Valley is a game full of progression systems that lead
Should be a golden egg here, if I
Meanwhile,
remember
Breath of the Wild
correctly.
is a game that tries to get rid of as many progression type rewards as possible. So what does Tears of the Kingdom do? And the answer is
Yes.
neither. Here's the thing, Tears of the Kingdom is a game full of progression systems, but it lacks meaningful rewards at the end of those progression bars. It's just progression bars. A lot of systems are just progression for progression's sake. It's in between the two extremes that Stardew Valley and Breath of the Wild are. It introduces tons of progression systems, but
Stop it.
barely rewards progression. It's really weird, to be honest. Just take a look at all those different things that we can progress individually in Tears of the Kingdom. Additionally to shrines, worlds, and armor upgrades, the game features unlocking all the post statues, finding posts, exploring all 152 caves, and killing the shiny Bulbasaur in them, visiting all 58 wells in the game, lighting all 120 light rooms, finding all armor items, completing all quests, upgrading our batteries,
Nice.
clearing all giga hideouts,
Oh my.
revealing all Edison signs, finding all Sage Squill, clearing all
Just
monster
beat it.
forces, and of course, pony points. Pony points are probably the best symbol to be this shift in design philosophy too. In Breath of the Wild, there is no reward tied to visiting the stables or to registering horses. The game expects that finding a stable is reward enough to visit the stables, and that having a horse registered is, reward enough to register a horse. In Tears of the Kingdom, however, those activities are tied to a progression system. It literally says X pony points is the next reward in the upper right corner to motivate us to capture another horse or whatever. So what is the final pony points reward? I'd ask you. Well, it's a whopping 3 endure carrots. And please don't get me wrong, I love my endure carrots as
I
much
think
as the
one's
next
almost
guy, but it
coming,
is really
so
a small
I'm
reward
gonna go
in
make a
comparison
save
to the
real
task
quick.
we just completed. Most rewards in the game are this understated. The rewards for handing in shiny
And it's
Bulbasaur
really annoying
cards
that there's
are
no
nice, but
autosave
nothing is game-changing.
for professional
Activating all
difficulty.
life rules doesn't lead to a gameplay reward. Finding the final well in the game rewards exactly the same thing as finding the first well rewards. And completing all Edison signs rewards the fabric for the paraglider. It's progression systems without meaningful rewards at the end. It's just the progression bars. And as weird as this may sound, I think it works. There's a feeling of working towards something meaningful every time we complete a cave, every time we visit the well, every time we fix a sign or light a light room. Even though most of those progression systems aren't designed to anything meaningful, they still help us to set
Yes.
goals while playing. Tons of goals. So many goals that at times Tears of the Kingdom reached the addictive quality of Stardew Valley for me while playing. It's not unusual to dive down from a Skyview tower thinking, okay, I'll first grab the piece of gear that is hidden in this cave, then I'll jump down the chasm, light the light route, and collect all the posts I can find on the way before I go to the shrine and get my 4th blessing, which I can then turn in Kakariko where I still have to wait. Is this a Korok seed over there? The game drowns us in goals, and I think this is the main reason why some people that bounced off of Breath of the Wild find themselves enjoying Tears of the Kingdom so much more. Which leaves us with the question, if this is overall a good thing or a bad thing. To which I have to reply,
I think I already
I
did
don't
the
know.
Viper
It's hard to
quest.
deny that those small progression systems help to give us long-term goals while playing, which makes the game a lot more addictive in Breath of the Wild, but they are also a bit...
This is what I'm talking about.
So basic. I guess I'm happy that one version of the game exists that is more thematically cohesive than Breath of the Wild, while one version exists that is more
Anything else I
and more
can
fun
help you
overall.
with?
Tears of the Kingdom. But the progression systems aren't the only
The
thing where
exclusive
Tears of the
upgrade ticket
Kingdom
really
tried
all
to
that
fix
worth
some
it.
of
What
Breath
does
of
it
the
give
Wild's
me?
flaws. They fixed something
Attack
even more
speed.
important. Something
Double attack power. That was pretty good, I'd say.
even though it is such a small change in flavor. Tears of the
Power
Kingdom is the first
multiplier,
open world game
yikes,
that I've
that's
ever played,
amazing.
and at least in my humble
Ammo
opinion,
capacity
managed to solve
doubled.
the enemy
That's
scaling
cool, I
paradox
guess.
of open world
Penetrate
games. So what is
through
the enemy
5
scaling
targets.
paradox of open world games? Well, if a world world is truly open and every
Rate
place
of
explored
fire
from the
by
beginning, then there is
double.
always the problem of how to scale the enemies. You know,
Oh,
if the
this
enemies
is
do
this
not
is the
scale,
sniper.
content
Rate of fire
almost
double.
always
That's
is
actually
inappropriate to
worthless.
the player's level.
And the
Most
5
areas
target
will visit would
penetration, I
either be
guess,
too
is
hard or too
cool.
easy for us.
But I
If
think the
enemies
red
do
9's the
scale,
one
however,
I'd
then the
want
world
the
feels
most.
arbitrarily created. Everything is
Critical
always the
rate,
same power level
yikes.
as we are. There is no feeling of progression since the
And
world
that one is
progresses
also
together with
worthless.
us. There are no
Amazing.
areas where we can feel powerful since we out-leveled them, and there are no areas that feel especially dangerous because
Crossing your T's,
it's
dotting
an
your I's.
catch-22 problem. The game does one thing, it immediately loses out on the other, and the other way
Is
around.
new?
It's a
Will
problem
that
with
be
pretty much
all?
every open world game that I've ever played
Better to
suffered
be
from in
over.
some form. In
No
Skyrim,
getting yourself
never feel
killed
truly
now.
powerful since the enemies scale with us. In Witcher 3, high-level enemies are so over-the-top powerful that it makes exploring those areas fairly pointless.
I can only
In
score up to
Elden
2
Ring,
at a
most
time.
players probably end up out-leveling some content. In Diablo 4, we sometimes
Okay,
get a level or 2 and actually feel weaker since the enemies leveled as well. And in Breath of the Wild, the combat becomes tedious towards the end since all enemies
check the
turn
Punisher's
into
exclusive.
watches. No game I've ever played
Welcome.
found a solution to this problem. Until Tears of the Kingdom. As far as I'm concerned, Tears of the Kingdom
Penetrate
completely
through
fixes
5
the problem.
targets
Want a
Tears of the
fighting
Kingdom
chance?
is a brilliant
Epic.
system
You
that
best
allows
tune
them
up
to have
your
it both
kit.
ways. To actually scale all enemies appropriate to our current level, while
Dazzle,
still having
are
areas
you?
that are too dangerous at the
Smash
beginning
that
or
with
will
power.
feel powerful later on.
Come back
We found a
anytime.
brilliant solution that is so
See,
effective
it's so
and
nice
so
and
simple
cheap.
that I wish all open world games in the future use a similar
Also
system.
very
So what
neat.
is this brilliant solution, you might ask? Well, to the best of my knowledge, they just scale a single enemy in every camp. That's it, and it's insane how effective this is. If a camp consists of 3 red bokoblins in the early game, then a camp will consist of 2 red bokoblins and a blue one in the mid game, and 2 red ones and a silver one in the very late game. Meanwhile, if a camp consists of 2 black bokoblins and a silver one by the late game, then it will be 2 black ones and a red one at the beginning of the game. It just have the difficulty of all but one enemy set in stone, while one enemy always scales. It's really funny because it's such an obvious solution in hindsight. Yet to the best of my knowledge, Tears of the Kingdom is the first game to use a system like this. Hooray! So back to the story. There is still a lot to discuss for us. Zora's domain is plagued by disgusting mud that is falling from the sky. We get to speak to a bunch of
I
people
guess.
about this problem.
Eh,
Have to
I
figure
prefer
out a
doing
really
it in the
interesting puzzle
afternoon.
where we have to shoot an arrow
It just
through a
seems like the
deer while
perfect
standing at
time.
the correct spot, explore the ancient water birds, and finally make our way towards the water temple together with the Zora Sidon. The Zora quest is my least favorite one out of the 4 main quests. There's a bit too much backtracking going on for my taste in the first half.
Yeah. I have a particular favorite among them actually right now. Yeah. It's the gray one for the pants, and then the white shirt with the red and blue stripes. I wear them together all the time, whenever I get the chance.
Okay.
Alright, hold on.
I had one.
Resident Evil 4.
Not to support.
Hold on.
Sakto 10:30 ah.
Almost, I guess. Pretty much.
Okay, nawarin mo na.